Welcome to Leadership Matters, a podcast from the Bailey Group. I'm your host, Kaylee Thomsen, president of and partner at the Bailey Group, where we believe better leaders create healthier workplace environments, healthier humans, and a better world. On this show, we explore real stories, practical insights, and honest conversations to help you lead yourself and others better. Thanks for joining us. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Leadership Matters. I'm your host, Kaylee Thomsen, and today I'm joined by Mark Steiner. Mark is co-founder and CEO of GigSalad. GigSalad is an event marketplace helping event planners match with the different talent that is out there for entertainment. Mark, welcome to Leadership Matters.
Thank you for having me, Kaylee. This is awesome.
Thank you for being here all the way from Missouri.
I drove all the way here from Missouri just for this podcast.
It's great to have you here. I would love to start with a question around what would your younger self be most surprised by looking at who you are today?
Wow. Well, it depends on what age, how far we go back. My most youngest self, my most impressionable years, the ones like 2, 3, 4 years old, I was already thinking about being a performer. I wanted to be on stage, in front of a camera, on playing music, but there was a lot of Hollywood in me. And I was probably naive and ignorant enough to think I was really going to do it. I mean, I just never had the possibility that it was anything else. I was always dreaming. I was always imagining what I was going to do. And there was different iterations of, sometimes depending on what movie I watched, I might change. I wanted to be a truck driver when Burt Reynolds did it in Smokey and the Bandit. So I for a year or two, it was like I was obsessed with Peterbilt and Kentworth, tractor trailers and that sort of thing. But for the most part, I wanted to be a star. Truly, I mean, that was my goal.
You said you were naive enough to believe that you could make it happen.
I think there's dreamers in this world, and there's those that don't feel comfortable doing that. There may be dreamers, but they don't ever give it voice. They don't put it out there because for the sheer vulnerability of it to say, I mean, I want to grow up and be a princess. I want to grow up and be, it was easy to say, I'm going to be a fireman or a cop or a cowboy or, something. But, you get to a certain age and to have the audacity to say, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. It can be very, it's just vulnerable. And I've come across more people that don't want to say it. And I'm just, and I guess there might be a bit of naivete to it, but I think it's more just sort of childlike. I just had this childlike innocence that I don't think I've ever let go of. So I still feel very childlike when I talk like this, because I'm 60 years old. I don't have a lot of friends that talk like this.
Yeah.
And I realize that. But it's been really just over the past couple of years that I've given myself permission to be more genuine and more honest. And I found that if I put myself on the line, basically put my neck on the block and dare say, this is what I'm going to do, then I better do it. There's a bit of, I'm motivated by that because I don't want to be embarrassed or ashamed or got too far over my skis. But I'm confident that I'm gonna either succeed or I'm gonna die trying. That's where I'm at.
I love that. Succeed or die trying.
That's it. Yeah.
You mentioned it was more recently, a couple of years ago, when you really gave yourself permission to be more open and more genuine. What was the catalyst for that, Mark?
There's a number of things. I think first it was I stopped drinking. stopped drinking alcohol, and that didn't have as I mean, it was kind of it was a it was a big decision in that I knew it was going to affect my social circles, and because most of my social circles, that was, I had, I had a tennis group, but it was really a beer drinking group that played tennis to be able to drink beer afterwards. And I had my card playing,
Mm.
guys I played cards with, or guys I golfed with, this various circles, but the alcohol was so much a part, prevalent and within that. And so I made the choice that I'm not going to drink for health reasons. It just was having more and more of an allergic reaction. I was having more of an allergic reaction the older I got. And after taking a break, just a little fast, I realized I felt better. And as I felt better, there was a clarity that came with that. And I started to question so many things. And then within 4 or 5 months of that decision, I got diagnosed with ADHD. And that changed everything.
How so?
Yeah, well, I spent a lifetime thinking that I wasn't quite right. I was off slightly, not
Mhm.
knowing exactly how. Full circle, back to the dreaming. Like, why am I that type of person? Why am I the type of person that is head is in the clouds all the time? And then the more challenging that's fun, like to be a dreamer. That just came naturally. Um, the amount of dreams I had and the amount of thoughts I had, that can be exhausting. And I didn't even realize that until after diagnosis and experimenting with different medications and getting my brain to slow down a little bit and being able to process and think. And so it was those two things that got me to start to rethink my entire life. In addition to that, in 20, I became an empty nester. I went through a divorce a couple years prior to that. And here I was approaching 60, sort of this milestone, and start to think, have I done all that I want to do? And the answer was no. There was still so much left. I put some things on the back burner, and I never stopped thinking that I was going to try to act again. For example, there was things that from my past, things that I had always wanted to do, and then there was all these new, fresh ideas that came to me about new things I could do. So, I don't know if I answered the question. Is one of those tangents I took, but that the clarity came from those things and from those events.
The conditions that really created the opportunity for you to lean more into who you are.
Being genuine and authentic and being real and realizing that through those things I mentioned, alcohol and social gatherings, there's a part that I'm coping with anxiety in those moments often. Times that I don't have alcohol, I walk into environments and I would do what's called masking or shape shifting, and I would become almost like a character. It's a persona that I'm putting on of depending on who I'm spending time with. And though I think that there's a part of me in all of that, um, but more of what's going on is there's a desire to connect, and there's a desire to be accepted. And the acceptance I was seeking was based on me becoming more like you.
Mm.
And I didn't think much about just being me
Mhm.
and finding safety and security in that in just being. And the irony of all that is the more I talk about this now with a lot of those friends groups, I'm through media like this, people are watching or listening to my podcast, and they're recognizing themselves in my storytelling without me ever saying a name. And I've had some really amazing conversations. One more recently, I was talking exactly about this idea of, I didn't always feel entirely comfortable when I was in those groups. And they, one guy in particular said, it's precisely why we love you, Mark, is because you were different. It was because you weren't like the rest of us.
Mhm.
That was a really hard one. That was when you spent a lifetime trying to be somebody else in many ways, and not seeing the forest through the trees, not seeing that people, in fact, were giving you everything you wanted, and just it didn't resonate. It didn't catch. Does that make sense? So, when you clear all this stuff out and you start unpacking who you are, who you've become, the, the who you've made yourself, that first half of life sort of stuff, and you start to analyze it and look at, I got to a place where I'm like, yeah, you are okay. You're not bad, So, it's like a Saturday Night Lights skip. I'm looking in the mirror and saying, you're good enough, and kind of believing it. And that's, it's kind of embarrassing. It's another one of those things that's just kind of embarrassing. Like, here I am, and I don't know, the way I've done life, it just seems different from others in many ways. I don't know how different it is. I don't know how much of this is connected to this condition, to the ADHD. There's another part of this. I'm adopted, so there's that. How that messed or sort of helped to form me. So I'm very complex. I'm complicated, Kaylee. Let's keep unpacking here. I feel better.
I can see how, trying to find a round hole for your square peg to fit into just showed you all the tension that existed versus I love how you talk about looking for acceptance not in these different groups, but finally within yourself. What did you need in order to get in touch with yourself and come to that acceptance, Mark?
When you cut alcohol out, it gives you a lot more time and a lot more energy. And I chose to utilize that time to do some of the things that I had avoided or didn't have time for. It was a priority. What was a priority, what wasn't. And being social was a priority, but that took away from the ability, if I go play tennis on a Tuesday night and we finish at 8 o'clock, and then afterwards we go to have a beer. Well, now it's 9 o'clock, and the way my alcohol was processing through my metabolism, I could have one beer and wake up the next morning and feel really lousy, or just not have the energy that I want. And I'm a morning person. After lunch, I really start to just naturally sort of crash. So now all of a sudden I woke up and I could get up with the light, and I could read, and I spent a lot of time reading and being very introspective, and sort of this in the self-help category of the book section. And I got faith back in some ways. It's been a spiritual journey, an intellectual one, an emotional one, a physical one. It's just been a sort of a relook at it all, and starting to accept and believe some of the core spiritual messages that I've known about, but not always appreciated or felt like that was for me. That idea of never feeling good enough or enough, that I was enough just as I was. And but when you take all these other enhancers out of the way, I just said, I have a choice. I have a choice on whether I'm going to believe it or not. And it was a switch. I was like, I'm just going to believe it. I'm just going to accept it in the same way I did years ago when it came to. There was a period in my life where I knew I knew high highs and I knew low lows, And I made a choice. I was like, if I have my choice, I'd rather be high. If it means I'm manic, but I'm gonna be up. I'm gonna be big. And but I equated that to being positive and optimistic, and being sad or depressed as being pessimistic, or being, and that's not entirely true, but as far as a blanket goes, I was like, and I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be optimistic. My point of view is going to be, when I tell the story, it's going to be a positive one. And I'm going to be present too. I'm going to be be here now. Then it was, okay, what about yourself though? What about how you view you? And I chose to believe a different narrative, another part of that story, which is, I'm chosen, I'm special, I'm unique. Why not? Why would that not be true?
Mm.
And the more I do it, the more I feel it. And there's not an arrogance behind it. There's not even a pride behind it. In fact, there's probably more humility in it than anything, because it's like I'm choosing to believe in myself, but at the same time, with that power, I now have the ability to do something with it. So if I might just innately be special, but what am I going to do with that specialness, and how am I expressing it? So that then now I was going to do the things that I've always dreamt about doing. I'm going to act again. And it turns out that I do like being an entrepreneur, and creating and inventing. So I'm going to do more of that. And I already have this great opportunity as a CEO at this existing company that's doing really well. I want to do even better at that.
Yeah.
And not sort of slide into my retirement years and just sort of rest on my laurels and golf and do these other things. Like, I want to do more. I want to be creating, and I want to be producing. And I believe all these ideas and all these thoughts I've ever have are, they're from someplace. They're from the universe. Are they divine? Are they, whatever it is? Not everybody has that. And I do. So I'm gonna try to make the most of it. I'm gonna try to do the best I can with it. And that's why I'm here. Because for me, it's been a long journey to get to this place. I mean, I feel like I've done well with most of my life, and I've been genuinely happy, and in a good spot for probably the better part of 20 years. And that's having gone through a divorce, and even with all of that, I've been good. But I realize I've also played it a little safe, maybe a little small, and I'm not even sure if that's true. I think I've been a responsible father and raising a family. So there's been other stuff. I mean, I've made choices.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's how I've gotten here.
I'm so glad that you brought up everything that you brought up. And there's so many threads I want to pull on. But one in particular is the late life ADHD diagnosis. And this is becoming more of a thing. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, in what way has that diagnosis most significantly changed your life?
The reason I even thought to get screened was my daughter got diagnosed first. And she was telling me the symptoms, and I just, you're describing, you and I, Olivia, but there's a thing,
Right.
there's a name for that.
This is normal.
We're something. Yeah, I just thought that's the Steiner way. But she kind of blew my mind, because I didn't know about ADHD. I didn't. And it's certain, and if I had ever heard of anything sort of in that realm, I didn't ever consider it was me. I, in my generation, when I was growing up, a hyperactive kid was likely put on Ritalin, and also sort of was a problem child. It was often like he's jittery. That guy, he's disruptive in class. He and there was a stigma with it.
Mhm.
It it never dawned on me that I I was that guy, but just not diagnosed and not medicated
Yeah.
because I was a bit of a rascal. I was often I was distracted. I couldn't focus. I wanted to be the class clown. I was just I'm doing this all the time.
Yeah.
And so it was me, but my parents never suspected that, or at least, we never went to a doctor. I never had a teacher or a counselor ever pull my parents aside and said, "Hey, you might want to." So I just didn't know.
Mhm.
And what I didn't know, but I spent a lifetime feeling like like I said, there's something sort of off. I just did life, and then I learned this. I get this diagnosis, and immediately, um, I start hearing phrases like, "Well, it's a superpower,"
Mhm.
or it's very common with CEOs or founders,
Mhm.
and it made sense. I thought because I had maybe within the past 10 years, I started to learn about EQ, emotional intelligence. And that was out of an act of desperation because I thought I reached a point about, oh, it was about 7 or 8 years in at the company, maybe 3 or 4 years after we even gave ourselves titles.
Mm.
We just avoided titles. I had a co-founder. I didn't, and everything we did was, you know, equal, even. We gave our first hire some equity in the company, so we had a minority shareholder. But between Steve and I, everything was even and
Mhm.
equal. And so I never wanted to be presumptuous to say, but I'm the CEO or I'm the president. It was just whatever work needed to be done, we did it, and that was the culture throughout.
Mhm.
And then we worked with a consulting company that helped us to understand why maybe having titles would help, and just understanding the interrelational, departments to department, this and that. But I got to that point once I was, I'm officially the CEO. I started to look at other CEOs,
Mm.
or in my mind, what a CEO looked like. Because I didn't come from a business background. I didn't go to college. I didn't know nothing for an MBA.
Yeah.
What I saw for a CEO was what I saw in movies.
Mm.
And it was a guy in a suit. It was, I'm trying to think, it was Wall Street, and that wasn't me. I couldn't talk like that. I didn't look like that. I wasn't sharp in that way. And I even said to my partners, "Hey, if you think we need somebody more like that, I get
Mm.
it." It was a really like humbling moment. I was emotional because of it, because I thought, I'm there's another case of I'm not enough
Mhm.
just as I am. And the company was doing great, by the way. We've always done really well. We've always grown. There wasn't any problems. There was
Yeah.
just in my head about, oh, but we might be able to do better if we had somebody else. And once they reassured me that we're great, you're great, everything's fine, I still wanted to find out, like, how could I do better? And somehow, some way, I got to EQ and understanding, oh, there is another way. There's another intelligence that does come into play. And in fact, maybe even a better way of leading. And I looked at our culture, or I looked at what we had built, and I realized all of it was based on this EQ.
Mm.
And I could appreciate that about myself, because I looked at these things I thought used to be weaknesses,
Mhm.
like my emotions. I could easily cry.
Mhm.
I could, and I felt things heavy, but I felt it not just for myself, but for others.
Mm.
So empathy and
Mhm.
compassion and listening and not making assumptions, all this sort of thing. And I thought, well, if in fact that's a thing, I think I'm pretty good at that.
Mm.
And then years later, to get the ADHD diagnosis, I realized how similar some of those symptoms are, some of the ways that you compensate for the places that you feel deficient, and in all the areas I felt insecure for, and how I would manifest um, the ability to work through those things. And so it changed my life. I mean, getting the diagnosis changed my life because I thought, well, this is who I am. So there's no denying it. And now I have a name. And what can I do with it? Well, I can study it and try to learn from it and do better. I can lean into it and say, I got this far just as I was. Everything can stay everything can just stay the same maybe. But because I've gotten busier and there was all these other things I wanted to do, I thought I better figure this out, and make sure that try to understand why am I pursuing all these things? Why am I trying to do all these things? Just because I can, just because I have the ideas. I don't have to do everything, but what is it what is the driving factor? What is it that compels me to want to keep doing this? And that's where I think the smash up of all the things Mark Steiner is comes into play. And if there's a part of that, it's the ADHD, it's the adoption, um, it's sobriety, it's awareness, it's desire. So it's a lot. It's hard to know which one is which, but I can just say that the ADHD and getting diagnosed late in life, I'm glad I did, because I'm not sure I would be um I'm not sure I would be able to or want to talk about this as much as I have, because it goes back to that idea of how much I kind of overcame. It was all in my head, but that's sometimes the toughest stuff to overcome, is just the stuff in your head. I didn't have a lot of barriers and obstacles on the outside.
Yeah.
In many ways came easy to me. Um, I mean, hard work and all of that, but I've been very fortunate and very blessed, and but it's still, I found ways and things that I felt like I had to overcome, chips on my shoulder, things I had to prove, and etc.
I wonder how much the language helped move you to acceptance.
Very much, yeah, very much. Saying the words, understanding the words, conversations like this,
Yeah.
like it's a profound moment for me. Like I'll leave it. I am if you had any idea, audience, how many thoughts are going through my head right now, uh and I'm trying to be present, but there's a lot. um but the words of affirmation, or the things that can ground me, and understanding a little bit of the science, just a little bit of actually what is happening. It helps a great deal. Yeah, words matter,
Hmm.
and language matters. And for me, being able to have conversations like this helped me along.
What helps you most stay present? That's a hot topic as well. How do we stay present in a world that's moving faster than it ever has and will continue to move faster and faster by the year, by the minute?
Right now, the freshest answer I would have is that I'm focusing on the noise. I keep hearing these little, Mr. Wonderful talks a lot about Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, and how his interactions with both of them. He knew them both. Knew Steve Jobs, worked for him, and knows Elon. And he talks about their amazing ability to block out the noise. So in this moment, I'm starting to try to recognize, when is noise present. If I'm on task, if I have a task, if I have two or three things I'm trying to accomplish today, I have to have at least the ability to block out all noise until I've accomplished those things. And then, if I can continue that throughout the rest of my day, then I feel like I'm gonna be, better. I don't know. But the tricks and the hacks that I currently use and have been using is meditation. I don't do it all the time, but when I do, and when I was doing it on a regular, when I had a regular practice of meditation, it had a dynamic effect on me. It absolutely works. Why I'm not doing it now, I don't know. But another case of just sort of making, having priority and understand, I need to get back to meditation, prayer, um, a little bit of a morning ritual of just trying to block out technology and devices for the first hour, and doing some grounding outside, getting into nature, breathing exercises, and then no again, and then it's the simple decision. The moment I know that the mind is racing, um, I just have to just sort of will myself to say stop, to stop. And if I'm with somebody, it's like this is all you need to be paying attention to right here and now. If I'm with myself and it's just I'm alone with my thoughts, it's what is the thing that needs to ground me now? Why am I feeling busy? Is that busyness feeling, is it anxiousness? Is it stress? Is there something I need to fix or take care of? So it's clarity, it's awareness
Hmm.
for the most part. And then knowing that I have the power to change it.
Yeah.
I do. Sometimes it can require some assistance, but knowing that there are tools and resources and things that can help me. There's ways of treating it.
Hmm. I love how much awareness and agency, choice shows up throughout so much of your story, Mark.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm getting better. I'm getting better, and
Cool.
I think the awareness I've had in the past, and that's another ADHD thing. I can walk into a room, and whether it's always accurate or not, I have a pretty good feel on how everybody's doing, and it's certainly how everybody's relating to me or interacting with me.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have an impression of me? And then trying to navigate that. How can I assure myself that they have a positive, impression of me?
Yes.
And or who do I not need to care about at all, or et cetera. So it's where, yeah, that agency stuff, and but understanding the power of ourselves. We are powerful beings. Between here and here and here, we got all the power in the world. Really do, for choice right here and now. And I think I'm doing better with that.
Now, by all accounts, you've co-founded, built, and are now leading a very successful business. You were one of the first on the scene when it came to digital marketplace creation. Um, and we all have ups and downs in our own journeys. Not often talked about, quite frankly.
Yep.
It's much more fun to talk about the fun times. Can you bring us back to one of those moments where you really were walking through some stuff, Mark?
I had my Steiner talent business, and then Steve and I started talking about GigSalad, and we got to our launch and realized we're bigger than our working in our homes. So we bought a building right at launch. We just, something came to me. I read someplace that it's better to own your office than rent. Just build up some equity, and have if you're going to pay for something, have a place when it's all said and done. If the business fails, well, at least you have a bit, you have a building maybe. So we bought a building, and I started renovating this building, gutted the building. It was an old building in downtown Springfield, and there was actually some tenants in there. So I found myself in a flash, trying to keep Steiner Talent going, working on this new startup, GigSalad. I'm now I'm a building owner / developer. acting as the general, a bit of there was a bit of the general contractor, but I was the great demo guy. I'm a landlord. Um, and my children my youngest had just started going to, he was in first grade. So he was going, so I worked out of the home during my entire children's until they went off to school. And, and I would drive the kids to and from school, and there was just a lot going on. And meanwhile, my relationship with Steve is great, and things were wonderful, but there was also a tremendous amount of pressure of not to let any of it fail. And we were very conscientious, Steve and I, of making sure that we were available for our families, that we really strive to have a really good balance. Um, and so, I would try to be present and available with the kids as long as they were up. And then as soon as they went to bed, I'd go back to work for a few hours, kind of thing. So there was long days, hard days with a lot of excitement. And there was and I got a lot of, dopamine from hits from that, that was a big part of all this. Is I've realized that too, that how much my entrepreneurial life has been a dopamine chase. It's exhilarating. But it was really hard. And Steve and I we never worked even in the same town. We've always, we built and grew GigSalad. He was in Wilmington, North Carolina, as I was here. And that had huge challenges too, because there was a lot of things happening in the Wilmington office that I was not a part of. That's where all the development was. So that was a really hard time to be trying to oversee my baby and be sharing ideas with Steve, and then he would go back to the dev team, and then they would work things out shoulder to shoulder, side by side, and I kind of felt left out a little bit then. But we grew, and things were good. So it was hard to take that for granted, but it was still hard. So that was a tough time. And then later, as we were growing, my marriage started to it was unraveling. It was tough. It was a tough time. And fortunately, again, the business was doing well, and it was this well-oiled machine that I was able to focus on the marriage or try to preserve the marriage. But that was really hard. I think that was one, career wise, my career's been pretty good. It was trying to be have as much success with my marriage that I had professionally, and that was tough. And again, not knowing what I know now about my ADHD, because I blamed Allison for a lot of it, for a lot of what was going wrong and the disconnect. And now I realize, oh, I probably wasn't that easy to live with all the time. I went back last year and apologized. I told her, said, I'm sorry. Yep.
What was most helpful moving through those seasons, Mark?
My faith and my relationship with Steve.
Mm.
My relationships in general, I really leaned into talk therapy, counseling and therapy. When we moved from Connecticut to Missouri, that was a move that we left the church, and that was our extended family for many years. And when we moved, it was a fresh start. It was a brand new start, and I took advantage of that and said, I'm going to be a new person. And I really wanted to I wanted to grow. I wanted to be the best version of myself I could possibly be. And I sought out men's groups to talk, private counseling, private therapy. I really wanted to delve deep into I felt like I still had a lot to to sort of work through as far as my adoption went and how I related to others and others related to me. Um, and that was, it was 20 years. I did it for 20 years on and off, various times, couples counseling with Allison. So but relationships, I've always worn my heart on my sleeve. And going back to what my friend said, I think that quality alone, the fact that I was always so real and honest and transparent and vulnerable about what was going on with me. Like I'm not really good at the schmoozing sort of surfacey plasticky talk, but if you want to talk deep, I'm your guy. And if there was something going on with me, I could not say it. I should just leave the room, or we shouldn't talk at all, but I can't not say what's going on with me. And what it turns out that can be endearing to people, that I'm showing some level of trust and just exposing myself, just saying this is what's going on. I'm not happy, right? If people ask me how you doing, I'm not one that's ever going to just give you a pat. Oh, things are great, and just carry on. It's like, you're going to know. And whether you really wanted to know or not, I'm going to tell you. But it turns out that was really helpful for me. It was both helpful for me, and it helped to form some amazing relationships, because opening up like that, now all of a sudden people were opening up to me. And in that environment, you can all of a sudden you can start to feel like, oh, I'm of service somehow. Through my experiences, showing a little bit of empathy, showing some compassion, showing some love. Now all of a sudden people are turning to you, and then it helps to put your own life in perspective, and you realize, oh, I'm doing okay, or I'm doing better than I thought, or I'm at least doing better now because I talked about it, and now how can I reciprocate that, and how can I give it to somebody else? And that's how I deal with it mostly, is through my friendships, my relationships, my just being real.
One final question for you.
Sure.
What's a question I haven't asked yet that feels on your heart to share?
How'd I do? How'd I do as a guest?
No, I can't ask you that. How do you feel like you did?
Felt like I stumbled along in the beginning. I thought being in person was going to be so much easier, but it was a little, I think the whole 3 cameras set up and this big fancy podcast, the whole thing about engineers and producers over there. This is like the real deal. There's a part of me that I'm a people pleaser, and I'm also a bit competitive, and I'm like, I really felt like this was going to be your best one ever, Kaylee. I think that's the arrogance of it all. But no, I hope that your audience, and I hope that your guests possibly maybe got something from today, if at least being entertained.
You're doing your entertainment thing.
That's right. It's my shtick. Yeah. So that really is the only thing I can think about. That I hope you're not disappointed that you had me on.
I am not.
No,
absolutely
and
not.
I'm not fishing either. It's I just thought, oh my gosh, did I answer things and I went off like this?
Yeah.
All that. I just hope that we tracked and we got some good stuff out there.
I'm confident that we did.
That's great.
This has been such a rich discussion, and I really appreciate you
Thanks, Kaylee.
sharing so openly.
Thanks.
I genuinely do.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
I appreciate it. It's great. This has been great.
And thank you to our listeners. Join us next week for another episode of Leadership Matters. Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Leadership Matters. If today's episode resonated with you, would you do me a favor and share it with someone you care about? To learn more about the work the Bailey Group is doing in the world, check us out at thebaileygroup.com or follow us over on LinkedIn. We love sharing useful articles, helpful resources, and valuable tools to help you expand your leadership capacity. Like and subscribe, and join us next time for more honest conversations.